Okay, Parshas Chukas. So 3 ideas. Let's see if we have time for all of them. The first idea I heard from Rabbi Isaac Bernstein in the name of Rabbi Yosef Nehemiah Kornitzer. He, I think, was the son-in-law of Rabbi Shimon Sofer of the Sofer dynasty, the Chasam Sofer, the Ksav Sofer. And it's a very interesting idea, fabulous idea on Parshas Chukas. Parshas Chukas, of course, deals with Parah Aduma. So the pasuk says, begins, Zois Chukas HaTorah, Asher Tziva Hashem Leimer, Daber B'nei Yisrael, V'yikchu Elecha Parah Aduma, Tamima, Asher Ein B'mum, etc., etc., etc. So the Parah Aduma. Says Rashi, famously, Zois Chukas HaTorah, this is the Chayk. Says Rashi, Lefisha Hasotan v'umas ha'olam moinin es Yisrael. They complain against the Jewish people. Loimar ma mitzvah hazoyis u'ma tam yesh bo. Why are you keeping the Parah Aduma? What's it all about? Lefichach chasav b'chuka. Therefore, it says chuka. Gezeir hi milfonai. It's decree. Ve'ein lecha rishus lahar achareha. And you have no right to investigate it. That's the famous Rashi. So the Torah tells us it's a chayk. Says Rabbi Yosef Nehemiah Kornitzer. A beautiful question. He quotes Rashi, says, and then in the second paragraph, if you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com. I'll send you the handout. It's a perplexing, strange concept. How can Rashi say you've got no right to investigate it? I mean, why not? Why can't we think about it? And moreover, V'inyan Parah Aduma. Shlomo HaMelech tried to grapple with it. V'chein Ramosha Darshan. Rashi famously brings Ramosha Darshan, and he also tried to give reasons for it. V'adarabba mitzvah hilach karachrei tamei mitzvahs. Surely it's a mitzvah to try and contemplate the reasons for mitzvahs. K'inyan shenem da es elekai avicha v'avdeu. What does Ramosha Darshan say? Rashi brings late in the Parsha. Parah Aduma, Moshe ben Shivcha, Shetinef Paltin Shemelech, that the daughter of the Shivcha dirted the palace. Amru Tovay Imav Atkaneh Chatzoya. Let the mother come along and clean up. Kach Tovay Parah Techape al Ha'egal. So too the Parah should come along and be mechape for the Egal. So Moshe Darshan gives a reason. So how can Rashi say Ein lecho rishus lahar achareha? Shlomo HaMelech did it. Moshe Darshan did it. And surely we're enjoined to also investigate these things. What's the problem? So, Rabbi Yosef Nehemiah Kornitzer gives the most magnificent explanation. Let's go through it together. V'hinei, b'pashtus v'adai ha'kavonu b'zeh, shelo yaharher acharei devorov, shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Parsha pshat is that you shouldn't grapple with the ideas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, im gam achrei ha'chakira lo yimotz elam tam nochen. In other words, if you've explored it, and you haven't come along with a satisfactory pshat, don't question God, move on. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that's poshet pshat. Because there are contradictions in Parah Aduma, how can the person who's doing it become tomei, etc., etc.? So if you've explored it, and you've still got questions, ein lecha rishus laharecha. That's the poshet pshat. Mikol mokum nirli, but he comes along and says, actually, I've got a different pshat. Mikol mokum nirli loimah b'zeh, al pi ma shekva kosavti. He asks another very powerful question. I've got a strong question on the reasoning of Ramosha Darshan. How on earth can we say that the Parah Aduma is coming to atone for the chait of the Egel? We were already given Parah Aduma in Mora. Mora is as soon as we came out of Mitzrayim, we crossed the Yam Suf, and we get to Mora. The Egel Azov hasn't happened yet.
Hashem always gives the cure before the punishment.
Okay, good. The refuah before the machla. Ve'im kein, hoyu muchrachim lecher elasas Egel, yan kidmel lezeh yedias Hashem Yisbarach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to do the Egel, wanted us to do the Parah Aduma, even before there was any talk of the sin of Egel Azov. So how can that be? Now look at the main paragraph of the third paragraph of Yosef Nehemiah Kornitzer. Kvar Kosav Rambam, very famous Rambam in Ovos Perek Gimel Mishnah Tesvav. Klal God Bozeh. He teaches us an important rule. She'ein hayedia macheshes habechira. No knowledge, foresight doesn't contradict bechira. The age-old problem. Aval ein koyach ben adam kotze seichel hasig ninzeh. We, with our finite, small minds, cannot fathom this concept. How can it be Anashus Nasuna that we have given, but we have Bechira, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything. Isn't that a contradiction? That's the age-old problem. Val zeh nemar Yeshaya, ki lo machshavosai machshavosechem. We lean on the Tanis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Yeshaya Novi, ki lo machshavosai, my concepts, my thoughts are not the same as your thoughts. Val zeh kos of Rashi, shahasotan hu ha-Yetzer hara, the Satan is the Yetzer hara. For umas ha'olam moinin es Yisrael, they complain against the Jewish people, adov tam ha-para aduma, v'retzei le'loima. What is their complaint? Ki bevadai nuchel l'tchosim b'tamish Moshe Darshan. We could, if a non-Jewish person comes and says, what's this para aduma business? We could turn around and say, I'll tell you, Moshe Darshan says, Moshel ben Shivcha, and give the moshel. So what's the big problem? Avul b'zeh gufa heim. No, you know what their complaint is? Their agitation of Klal Yisrael is, Lema mahu tama mitzvah zu. What is the reasoning of this mitzvah? Ve'eich yuchol liyos kazeh sheyida be'ischem mishpat al dova asoischem es ha'egel achrish HaKadosh Baruch Hu kvar yodem menefnim yedir brur shetaseu. How can HaKadosh Baruch Hu give you this paraduma when he knew that there was going to be an egel beforehand? You know what they're complaining about? They're complaining about this ultimate paradox of Hakol Tzofui v'Harishus Nesuna. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees everything, yet you have Bechira. So now, straight now after the Shiur, I can go to a Trefa restaurant and buy a cheeseburger? Yeah, I've got Rishus. Does HaKadosh Baruch Hu know? Yeah. So then how can I have Bechira? That's the old problem. That's exactly what they're grappling with. Val zeh anachnu meshivim ein lecho rishus lahar achareho. That's our response. We have no right to be maharer, to question the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not within our finite minds to understand this impossible predicament. Of course, Rav Moshe Darshan's reasoning is correct. But the question regarding Yediyah and Bechira, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructs us before the actual action, because he knows there's going to be an Egel, and how could we be an Egel, because does that mean you haven't got Bechira? That's what they're pointing at. And therefore, Asher Yistayv B'zeh Hatam, that's an impossible paradox. Al Dova Kush Shazu Ein Lecho Rishus Lahareh. For Koyach, we haven't got the ability, for Koyach B'sichlenu, in our finite minds, to understand this impossibility. B'sichlenu HaKotze Lahareh V'lachkar Al Zeh. Ki lo machshavos ha'machshavosechem, Ketirat HaRambam, etc., etc. So the Rambam's answer to the question is, we don't know. It's not within our ability as human beings with finite minds to understand this predicament. And therefore, Pshat, again, so just to summarize, what are our questions? Our question is, why does Rashi say in the Chorishus Lahar Achareh? Surely we should contemplate the reasons for mitzvahs. Shlomo HaMelech did, or Moshe Darshan did. What's the problem? Second of all, Paraduma was given at Morah, before even the Egel happened. So how can the Paraduma be given for a sin which hasn't yet happened? HaKadosh Baruch Hu therefore knew it was going to happen. So if you knew it was going to happen, then clearly you haven't got Bechira, because it was definitely going to happen. So there's no Bechira. So that's the predicament. On that's what the Umas Ha'olam are coming to sort of give the tirade against. That's their argument. So you see, it doesn't make sense. So we have to respond. You're right. Our finite minds cannot understand this, and we've got no ability to contemplate and to grapple with this particular question. That's his take on this. A fabulous insight. Okay, having said all that, there is a famous Torah Tamima on this Rashi. This is it's known as your father used to call it the Torah Tamima's ink spot theory. Have you heard it before? This is how that was his phrase. The Torah Tamima's ink spot theory. What does that mean? So I'll do it in the inside. The pasuk says, this is going back to Parsha B'Shalach. Vayitzak el Hashem. They come tomorrow. They haven't got any water. They're desperately thirsty. They cry out to Hashem. Vayireu Hashem eitz. Vayashlech el hamayim. They take a piece of wood and they throw it into the water. Vayimtuku hamayim, and the water becomes sweet. Sham som lo yichok umishpat v'sham nisahu. There they tested HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one of the places where they tested Hashem. But the pasuk says Sham som lo yichok umishpat. There they were given chok umishpat. What is chok umishpat? It says Rashi on the pasuk there in B'Shalach in Perek Pet Tesvav pasuk Chafei. B'Mara noson lahem miktsas parshas. In Mara they were given some of the parshas. Shal Torah sheis asku bohem. What are the three things they were given? Shabbos, Para Aduma, V'dinin. Right, so that's a lot of things to learn. Right, Shabbos, the whole of Hilchos Shabbos, the whole Para Aduma, and Dinin. Ad Kan Rashi. Those were the three things. Says the Torah Tamima on the Rashi, Kach mashmalei haloshen chok u'mishpat, because the pasuk says chok u'mishpat of a Gemara Issa, and the Gemara brings she'oid nitztavu b'mora al mitzvah Shabbos for kibbud aveim. The trouble is, the Gemara says that they were given different mitzvahs in Mora. They were given Shabbos, they were given kibbud aveim, and then mishpat. For somich le'midichsiv, the mitzvahs elu b'dabros achronos, in the second dibros, in the second luchos in Parshas Vayischanon, it says kashet tzivcha Hashem elokecha, like Hashem has already given you. We don't find where HaKadosh Baruch Hu had actually given us this. You know where they gave it to us? At Moro. That's when we got Shabbos and these things. Kibbud Aveim. Fine. V'ayim b'pirish Rashi b'posuk zeh. Kosov shenitztavu b'mora al dinin v'Shabbos b'paraduma. The three things were, like I just said, says Rashi, Shabbos, dinin, that's all of Nezikin, Baba Kama, Baba Mitzvah, Baba Basra, etc., and paraduma. V'nilu ha-mefarshim. That means the mefarshim have become weary. Limtza mekar l'dvar. Where does Rashi get this from? He's quoting Chazal, which says that the three things they learned at Mara were paraduma, were dinin, and Shabbos. But where does Rashi get this from? V'ladaiti nira. And in my opinion, it seems borrow clear. Shetos sofer kal. There was a mistake, a printing error, an easy, light printing area. Nafal bidvarov, fell into his words. Shaya kosov, because the original source says Shabbos, v'dinin, v'chaf aleph. Chaf aleph. What does that stand for? Chaf aleph. Roshei Tevas Kibbud Av. So the original text said, what was given at Mara? Shabbos, dinin, v'chaf aleph. The printer comes along, or Kamoy b'Gemara Mechilta, and that's what the Gemara says. That's the source. Of a tos nishtrabib hachal perushay, and a mistake crept in here. Ve'eza matik hoisif tos al tos, and then printers upon printers and copied, etc. Or pirish mefurish harosha tevis paraduma. There was an ink drop from the chaf, and actually they thought it was a pei. Pei aleph. What's pei aleph? Paraduma. Or lepelahu, and it's strange. Ki gama Ramban benimukov kan hevi b'shem Rashi kosafaninu. He also quotes this Rashi and says paraduma, but I think that it's a printing mistake. A little dot on the chaf makes it into a pei. The printer thought, pei aleph paraduma. That's the explanation.
It's a coincidence that the reward of Torah and Sina,
I see. Yeah. True.
Was paraduma.
True. Maybe that was going. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. V'da demasha onunagim b'tfilas yontov. Interestingly, what we daven in yontov. This is just an aside. Shechol b'Shabbos. When Yom Tov falls on Shabbos, yeah, we had it just now. No, Pesach we had it. Whatever, yeah. Of a Kiddush, lahoisif milos ba'ahava uverotzain. Yeah, when Shabbos and Yom Tov coincide, yeah, in your brackets, in your art scroll machzah, we add in ba'ahava uverotzain. Mipnei shekol ha-mitzvahs v'chlolim ha-moyadim nitnu b'Sinai, because all of the mitzvahs were given at Har Sinai. Of kfiyas hahar kanoida. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu held the har over Klal Yisrael. In Loshen Parshas Yisrael, Pasuk Vayisatz v'Patach Har. Aval mitzvah Shabbos nitna b'mara. In other words, the rest of the Torah was given at Har Sinai. That was given b'yira. HaKadosh Baruch Hu forced to hold the mountain over us. There was no ava going on there. That was coerced. Like, the Tosas, how can we say Nasa Israel, all the rest of it. But we were given it with force. I said, what about Shabbos? Shabbos was given at Mara. Therefore, Mora, that was given by Avarotzin. So Shabbos, we always add in Avarotzin, below Einus, without coercion. V'lochein moisifim b'zichron Shabbos ba'avarotzin. Therefore, whenever we mention Shabbos, we add in ba'avarotzin. Good. So that is the Torah Tamima ink spot theory. That's Rashi when he says Shabbos paraduma v'dinin. It's a mistake. Really, it's Shabbos. It's kibbud aveim, and it's chaf aleph, which should have been kibbud aveim and not chaf with a little ink drop, which makes it into a pei and paraduma. Okay, Peseda. Let's do one more idea. A very beautiful idea. This I saw it. Rav Yaakov Bender is a famous mechanech in America. He's got a beautiful sefer on Chumash. So I looked through what he says on this week's Parsha, and he asks a great question in the name of Rabbi Zev Leff. So I've never seen this from Rabbi Leff in his forum or his writings, but it's nice to hear Rabbi Leff quoted by others. But it's a fabulous question and a very interesting answer. In Parshas Chukas, we have those terrible words that are recorded that the Torah says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Shimu no hamorim. And Moshe Rabbeinu, the Fi Madrigosa, is punished for that. Shimu no hamorim, he says, listen, morim, which we normally translate to mean rebels. And now, of course, Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest person who's ever lived, that was even the Mefarshim grapple with what exactly was the mistake, and there are lots of different perushim what exactly the issue was. It's so slight in Avera, but l'chora the sin is he called Klal Yisrael Mamrim. He called Moirim. Shimu no hamoirim. You listen up, you rebels. Hamina sera zenutzi lochem mayim. The error seems to be calling Klal Yisrael Moirim, rebellious. The difficulty is in Parshas Eikev. He says the same thing. Mamrim hoyisim im Hashem miyom dat yeschem. When he's giving rebuke to Klal Yisrael, he says exactly the same lashon, and we don't find any punishment for Moshe Rabbeinu referring to Klal Yisrael as Mamrim over here. So how come in Parshas Chukas everyone shouts and goes crazy? This is it. Vayom Shimon HaMoirim, and this is the Aveira, the big Aveira of Moshe Rabbeinu, in inverted commas. And yet in Parshas Eikev, Mamrim Yisim Hashem Miyom Daiti Eschem, there's we don't find any punishment for Moshe Rabbeinu for saying that. So Rabbi Lev gives a magnificent answer. You know the difference between Moirim, Shimon HaMoirim, and Mamrim Yisim Hashem? The difference is this: it's wrong to call Klal Yisrael Mamrim. So, but to remind them that they once acted in this way is okay. In other words, if you call them Shimon HaMoirim, you are rebellious. That's wrong, because to call a child, he made a mistake. You are foolish, you are silly, you are lazy, whatever it may be. That to label him in that way is wrong. What you did last week, or what you did was lazy. That's very different. And therefore, Mamrim, Hayisim Hashem, you rebelled in the past, you acted in a rebellious way. Okay, you've got to give rebuke, but to label a person rebellious is a different matter. And that's the error, that's the difference. And therefore, when Moshe Rabbeinu says, Shimon HaMoirim, he calls Klal Yisrael rebellious, he was taken to task for that. Again, Lefi Madrigose. But in Parshas Eikev, when he says, Mamrim Yisim, what you did in the past was wrong, you rebelled against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, okay, that's the job of a teacher, of a parent, to pick up a child on an error of their ways. That's the difference. And it's interesting, because in Parshas Devarim, at the very beginning, the first pasuk of Devarim, Eila hadvar ma shediber Moshe al kol Yisrael be'ev ha'yarden, b'midbar ba'arova molsuf ben par ben teufel. Well, where are these places? Says Rashi, he goes through each one. Eila hadvarim, lefi shein divrei teichachos, because these are words of rebuke. Umono kan kol ha'makom shechisu lefnei ha'mokim bohen. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu is now giving rebuke, giving teichacha to the Jewish people, and he goes through all the places where Klal Yisrael angered Hashem. Lefichach sasem es hadvarim. He doesn't do it blatantly. He just sort of his kiram beremez mipnei kavod Yisrael. He does it sort of just allusions. He gives hints. So, for example, b'midbar, lo b'midbar hayu ela ba'arvas moav, u'ma b'midbar b'shvil ma shechisu b'midbar. It's a hint to the error which they made. Ba'arova b'shvil ha'arova shechotzu b'bal par b'shitzim ba'arvas moav, etc., etc. The danger of labeling a child is major. And therefore, it's very important to give teichach in a clever way, in a gentle way. Divrei chachamim b'nachas nishmoim. To do it in a gentle way, often it's more effective. And that's really the difference between why in this week's Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu says Shimon HaMoirim and he's punished for that. But yet, in Parshas Eikev, Mamrim Hoyisem, you were rebellious. They're not labeling the child. Therefore, we're okay. So there we have it. 3 ideas on this week's Parsha. The beautiful idea of Yosef Nechemi Kunitzer explaining the difficulties with Rashi. 2 obvious problems. Why can't we contemplate it? Why in the Rishus Lahara? And the striking problem, the paradigm was given at Mara, which was before the Egel Azov. So the idea being, we're going to the big old problem, Harishus Nesunav, Hakol Tzofu, etc., etc. And that's really what their claim against us is, and that's Pshat in Rashi in Rishus Lahara. Then you have the Torah Tamima's ink spot theory, that should have been Kibbud Aveim, and the Chof became a Pei Aleph wasn't Kibbud Aveim, Por Aduma, etc., etc. And how to rebuke, not to label a child, but to rebuke in a more gentle fashion. Okay.